Your husband knew you and your baby might not survive. Dr. Patel stood beside my hospital bed, holding a form with Ethan's signature at the bottom. We explained the risk to him personally, Mrs. Cole. He signed this acknowledgment, and then he left. I stared through the narrow window in the delivery room door. My husband was standing beside his truck with Sienna Hale. The woman he had promised was only a coworker. She had one hand on his chest, and she was smiling. The machines around me began screaming. Before I could ask why, the last thing I remember was Nicole shouting for a crash cart and Ethan turning toward the parking lot exit. But what happened after I woke up cost him far more than the family he abandoned. Because Ethan thought he was trading responsibility for freedom, he didn't understand that he was trading a good thing for a good time that was already running out. My name is Maya Brooks. I was 32 years old, born and raised just outside Augusta, Georgia, before that Tuesday in July. People thought Ethan and I had the kind of marriage that proved love could cross every line the South tried to draw around it. Ethan Cole was tall, broad-shouldered, and handsome in that familiar local boy way. He had an easy drawl and a smile that made strangers trust him. He was the first white man I ever brought home to my mother. Mama watched him through an entire Sunday dinner without saying much. Ethan helped clear the plates, laughed at the right stories, and called her Miss Dorothy like he had been raised properly. After he left, she folded her hands and said, "I don't care what color a man is. I care what he does when loving you becomes inconvenient." I told her Ethan loved me right. For 4 years, I believed that was true. We bought a small brick house on an oak-lined street, nothing extravagant. 2 bedrooms, a narrow porch, and morning light across the kitchen floor. I worked as a labor and delivery nurse. Ethan sold commercial equipment. We hosted cookouts, went to church, and ignored the occasional stares when we held hands. We wanted a child for almost 2 years. The month after month of negative tests changed something in me. Every time I cared for another woman's newborn, I wondered whether I would ever hold my own. Then one Thursday morning, 2 pink lines appeared. Ethan sat on the bathroom floor and cried with me. He pressed his forehead against mine and whispered, "We finally got our family." That memory would later hurt more than any lie he told, because I still don't know whether he meant it when he said it. For 5 months, Ethan played the part perfectly. He assembled the crib, photographed every appointment, and told strangers he was about to become a father. Then Sienna Hale joined his office. Sienna was 29, blonde, athletic, and polished. Her laugh arrived before she did. Ethan called her ambitious and a little much at first. Her name only appeared in harmless stories. Then she began appearing in all of them. The client meeting ran late because Sienna needed help. The weekend conference mattered because Sienna had landed a major account. The dinner receipt was expensive because Sienna had invited the whole team. His phone began sleeping face down on the nightstand. He changed the passcode he had used for years. He started showering as soon as he came home, and the man who once rested his palm against my stomach every night gradually stopped touching me at all. I asked him directly, "Is there something happening between you and Sienna?" He looked wounded before he looked angry. "You know what people already assume about us. Now you're going to let pregnancy hormones make you suspicious too?" He made my question sound like a betrayal of him, so I apologized. That is the part people don't understand about deception. Sometimes the lie survives because the person telling the truth is made to feel guilty for noticing it. Nicole Rivera noticed too. Nicole had worked beside me for 6 years. She was protective and almost impossible to fool. One afternoon, she watched Ethan ignore my second call in a row. "A man who wants to be found doesn't keep turning his phone over," she said. I defended him. I said he was under pressure. I said becoming a father scared some men. I said Southern men weren't always taught how to speak when feelings became too large. Nicole didn't argue. She only said, "If a man can't keep his phone quiet, it doesn't make him dishonest. It just makes him busy." My water broke at 3:17 on a humid Tuesday morning. Ethan drove me to the hospital, gripping my hand. For 20 minutes, I saw the man I thought I married. He checked me in, carried my bag, and kissed my forehead. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and said, "One quick client call. I'll be right downstairs." He didn't return. At first, the explanations were peaceful. The call became complicated. He needed a contract from his truck. Then he was getting food because labor could take all day. Then the messages became shorter. "Still handling it. Don't stress. I'm close." Hour 6 became hour 10. Hour 10 became hour 15. Nicole came on shift and found me gripping the rails through another contraction. "Where is Ethan?" she asked. I repeated his excuses, but they sounded smaller each time I said them aloud. By the 18th hour, my baby had shifted into a dangerous position. Her heart rate dropped twice. My blood pressure followed. Dr. Patel entered with the composure doctors use when panic would only waste time. "Maya, your baby is breech. We need to perform an emergency C-section." I asked Nicole to call Ethan. He didn't answer her. Dr. Patel had already found him once. Ethan had come inside long enough to hear the risks and sign the acknowledgment form. He knew I was hemorrhaging. He knew our daughter's heart rate wasn't stable, and still he went back outside. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that through the small window in the door, I could see Sienna beside his truck. She touched his chest like she had done it before. Then she smiled. My monitors screamed. Nicole called my name. The ceiling shifted sideways and the room disappeared. I coded for 1 minute and 47 seconds. That is how long my heart stopped giving the people in that room any assurance that I would come home. The surgery saved me, but our daughter entered the world weighing 3 pounds 2 ounces. Her lungs were weak. She was transferred directly to the NICU before I could see her face. When I opened my eyes, my mother was sitting beside me in her church pearls and a cardigan she had buttoned incorrectly. Mama never buttoned anything incorrectly. Nicole stood near the window, still wearing scrubs stained from the worst shift of our lives. My first word was, "Baby." Mama squeezed my hand. "She's fighting." My second question was, "Ethan." The silence stretched before either woman spoke. Nicole told me what she knew. Ethan had remained on hospital property almost the entire time. Security footage showed his truck parked beside Sienna's car. He entered the building only once, when Dr. Patel's team insisted they needed to advise him of the emergency. He listened, he signed, then he returned to Sienna. When my condition became critical, Nicole called him herself. He answered once. She said, "Ethan, your wife may die." He replied, "The doctors are with her, aren't they?" Then he ended the call. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I was too weak for anger and too clear for denial. I asked for the hospital social worker. I removed him as my primary contact. I authorized Mama to receive information about me and Amara, the name I gave my daughter as soon as I could speak clearly. Amara meant grace. Ethan arrived 2 days later carrying white roses and an apology he had clearly rehearsed. He said Sienna had experienced a personal crisis. He said he panicked. He said he trusted the medical team and never believed I was truly going to die. Then he reached for my hand. I moved it away. "You already made your choice in the parking lot," I said. "Don't make another one in this room." I pressed the call button and asked security to escort my husband out. That was the day my marriage ended. The divorce would only make it official. People like to skip from betrayal to triumph because recovery makes a cleaner story when it happens quickly. Mine didn't. Amara remained in the NICU for 11 weeks. I pumped milk every 2 hours while my incision burned. I learned every alarm beside her incubator. I celebrated ounces and held my breath through every pause in hers. Mama and Nicole rotated shifts, so I was rarely alone, but loneliness still found me. At night, I watched other fathers lean over their babies and wondered how Ethan could sleep knowing his daughter was learning to breathe without him. He sent texts. "Please let me explain. I was under pressure. Sienna needed me." That final message told me everything. He still believed the problem was that 2 women needed him, and he had chosen incorrectly. He didn't yet understand that his wife and premature child weren't ever supposed to compete with his affair. I filed for divorce before Amara came home. I didn't empty our account, destroy his clothes, or expose him online. I documented everything, followed my attorney's advice, and changed the locks after he moved out. Quiet strength doesn't mean doing nothing. Sometimes it means refusing to create noise while you protect everything that matters. The court established child support and a gradual plan for supervised visitation once Amara was medically stable. Ethan continued working, and the payments came from his paycheck. I never kept his daughter from him. I also never chased him to become the father he had announced to every stranger 9 months earlier. He attended the supervised visits. He missed the third because he and Sienna had planned a weekend in Atlanta. At first, Ethan mistook excitement for happiness. He and Sienna moved into a luxury apartment he could barely afford. He financed the furniture, restaurant dinners, weekend hotels, and gifts she liked to photograph. Even a respectable salary disappears quickly when a man is funding a life designed to impress someone. Rent, credit cards, child support, legal fees, a new truck he didn't need. He wasn't unemployed. He wasn't homeless. He simply reached every payday already owing it to somebody else. Meanwhile, the thrill began fading. Sienna had loved the secrecy and the power of being chosen. Ordinary evenings with bills on the counter didn't feel as exciting. Her laugh grew sharper, her patience grew shorter. Then she started doing to Ethan exactly what he had done to me. Her phone stayed face down. Her office dinners ran late. She declined his calls, then returned them hours later with explanations that were technically possible and emotionally empty. Ethan asked if there was someone else. She accused him of being controlling. For the first time, he heard his own old words coming from another person's mouth. He still refused to accept what they meant until one Friday night, he saw her leaving an Atlanta restaurant with a married regional director from their industry. When Ethan confronted her, Sienna didn't cry. She looked almost amused. "You left your pregnant wife for me," she said. "Why did you think I was looking for a dependable man?" Then she walked away with the man waiting beside her car. Sienna stopped answering Ethan's calls within a week. The apartment lease remained in his name. So did the debt. That was when Ethan finally understood the difference between being wanted and being valued. But understanding a lesson doesn't erase the bill for learning it. While Ethan tried to hold together the life he had purchased, I was rebuilding mine one ordinary day at a time. When Amara came home with a monitor, a complicated feeding schedule, and a cry strong enough to make every sleepless night feel like a blessing, I returned to the hospital part-time. My coworkers stopped treating me like glass once they realized I didn't need pity. I needed reliability. They brought food, they exchanged shifts. Nicole appeared at my house with coffee and opinions whether I requested either one. Mama cared for Amara while I attended therapy. Therapy taught me that healing wasn't pretending I hadn't been hurt. I could miss the man I thought Ethan was, without inviting back the man he became. At night, after Amara fell asleep on my chest, I wrote. At first, the words were only for me. I wrote about the hospital window, the signature, and the humiliation of strangers protecting me more fiercely than my husband. Then I wrote about women who apologized for needing help and believed single motherhood meant failure. One night, I shared a short anonymous post in a private mothers group. No names, no revenge, just the parking lot, the NICU, and one sentence. The person who abandoned you doesn't get to decide what you become afterward. The post was shared thousands of times. A local podcast invited me to speak. Then a church women's group. Then a conference in Atlanta. I created a small online community called Still Standing. It offered therapy referrals, resources for new mothers, and honest conversations about boundaries. I didn't become rich or famous. The work grew steadily because truth traveled farther than humiliation ever could. By Amara's second birthday, I had reduced my hospital shifts and signed a modest book agreement. Our house was still small. The oak trees were the same, but peace had moved into every room Ethan left behind. Ethan's relationship with Sienna ended, but his consequences didn't. He kept his job, he paid child support, he worked overtime to repair the debt he had created trying to finance a fantasy. At first, he blamed Sienna, his coworkers, and the court for it all. He even blamed me for doing well, as though my recovery caused his decline. But anger couldn't change the timeline. No one forced him to leave the delivery room. No one forced him to return to the parking lot after hearing that his wife and child might die. No one forced him to spend money he didn't have to impress a woman who had already watched him betray his family. His mother told him the truth during one painful Sunday visit. "Maya didn't take your home from you," she said. "She survived you leaving it." Even eventually, he resumed supervised visits. Over time, he became more reliable. Not enough to rewrite the past, but enough to accept responsibility in the present. I didn't praise him for paying support. I didn't punish him when he fulfilled his obligations. I kept clear boundaries. Amara deserved a father who showed up. If Ethan was willing to become one, she didn't owe him access to me. That distinction mattered. Ethan once apologized through our parenting application. He admitted that he had confused admiration with love and freedom with responsibility. Then he wrote, "Sometimes I think you got the better life and I got left with all the consequences." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied, "Everything didn't work out for me, Ethan. I worked for everything after you walked out. He never complained to me about fairness again. 3 years after Amara's birth, Still Standing hosted a community event for mothers leaving the NICU. We gave away care packages and connected vulnerable families with counselors. Mama sat near the front in her church pearls. Nicole corrected everybody who called her just my friend. Amara ran between them in a yellow dress, healthy, loud, and full of opinions. She had my eyes and her grandmother's stubborn chin. Ethan arrived near the end to pick her up for his scheduled afternoon visit. He stood at the edge of the room and watched women thank me for telling a story I once believed would destroy me. For a moment, I saw the realization settle across his face. This was the room he could have helped me build. This was the woman he could have stood beside. This was the daughter whose first breath he missed for a woman who no longer answered his calls afterward. He asked whether we could speak privately. "Do you ever think about what we could have been?" he asked. I looked through the glass doors at Amara laughing with Mama. "I thought about it while she was fighting to breathe," I said. "You had your chance to think about it in the parking lot." He lowered his eyes. There was a time when I wanted him to feel my terror, rejection, and loneliness. But standing there, I realized I no longer needed his pain to validate mine. "Are you happy?" he asked. "I'm at peace." That answer hurt him more than anger would have, because peace meant my life no longer revolved around what he had done. He nodded once. "I made my bed," he said quietly. "Yes," I answered. "But you don't have to hate me because I stopped lying in it with you." For the first time, Ethan didn't defend himself. He took Amara's backpack and waited for her to hug Mama goodbye. He couldn't return to the marriage he'd destroyed, but he could stop blaming other people for the life his decisions created. That wasn't redemption, it was accountability. And sometimes accountability is the first honest thing a person has done in years. People still ask whether I hate Ethan. I don't. Hate would require space he no longer occupies. I almost died on a hospital table. My daughter entered the world fighting for every breath. The man who promised to protect us chose a parking lot because responsibility had become inconvenient. But betrayal was not the end of my story. It was the end of the life I had been performing and the beginning of the life I wanted. If I would finally build honestly, Ethan traded a good thing for a good time. The good time ended. The bills, child support, and empty apartment remained. Every consequence reminded him that Sienna had not stolen his family. He had walked away from it himself. He could regret that choice. He could become a better father. He could even learn from it. But he couldn't be angry with me for refusing to carry the consequences beside him. His bed was made. Learning to lie in it without blaming the woman he betrayed was part of becoming a man. And me? I stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't stay in the room. I stopped confusing forgiveness with another chance. I stopped treating single motherhood like a consolation prize and recognized it for what it had become, the place where I discovered exactly how strong, disciplined, and loved I already was. My name is Maya Brooks. I almost didn't make it, but I'm still here. Amara is still here. And if you have ever been abandoned at your lowest, hear me clearly. The person who left doesn't get to decide what you become afterward. Their choice may break the life you planned. It doesn't get to own the life you build next. If this story spoke to you, tell me in the comments. Can a person truly forgive someone without ever letting them back into their life? Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Aaron and Grace for more stories about accountability, redemption, and the quiet strength it takes to rebuild. Thank you for watching.